I didn't think my son would ever be the kind of man who could look me in the eye and tell me to leave. Not like that. Not on Christmas. Not in front of his own kid. But I guess there are a lot of things you don't think will happen, right up until they do. It started with something small. At least that's how it felt at the time. A tone, a look, the kind of thing you brush off because you don't want to believe it means something bigger. I'd been at their house since the morning, helping set things up like I always did. It had become a tradition after my wife passed, Christmas at my son Mark's place. He had the bigger house, the nice kitchen, the kind of place that looked good in pictures. His wife Lauren cared about that stuff. Everything had to look right. I didn't mind helping. In fact, I needed it. The holidays had gotten quieter after my wife died. Too quiet. Being around them, even if it wasn't perfect, was better than sitting alone in my house staring at decorations we used to put up together. That morning, I got there around 9 a.m. I brought the same things I always did: homemade stuffing, a bottle of wine, and the old wooden ornament my grandson used to insist we hang together every year. It's nothing special to anyone else, just a carved little reindeer, but to him, it was everything, or at least it used to be. Lauren opened the door when I knocked. She gave me a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You're early," she said. "I always come early," I replied, trying to keep things light. "Figured you could use an extra pair of hands." She stepped aside to let me in, but there was a pause. Just a second, like she was deciding whether she really wanted me there. "Sure," she said finally. "We're still getting things together." The house smelled like cinnamon and pine, the way it always did around Christmas. Decorations were already up, perfectly arranged, like something out of a catalog. The tree stood tall in the living room, lights glowing softly, every ornament placed like it had been measured. It didn't feel messy or lived in. It felt staged. Mark came down the stairs a minute later, phone in hand, barely looking up. "Hey, Dad," he said. "Hey, kid," I replied. He gave me a quick hug, the kind you give someone out of habit more than feeling. Then he stepped back, already half-turned toward whatever was on his screen. "Everything good?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "Just work stuff." On Christmas. I didn't say anything. I'd learned over the past couple years that pushing him only made things worse. He always had a reason, always had something more important. Lauren clapped her hands lightly. "Okay, if you're here, you can help with the table." Of course. I spent the next couple hours doing exactly I'd always done, setting plates, moving chairs, running back and forth between the kitchen and dining room, while Lauren directed everything like she was running a show. Mark drifted in and out, mostly glued to his phone, occasionally chiming in with a comment or a correction. At one point, I put the wine glasses slightly off-center, and Lauren immediately adjusted them. "Like this," she said, not looking at me. "Right," I said. It wasn't a big deal. None of it was on its own. But it adds up. Those little moments. The way you start to feel less like family and more like staff. Around noon, my grandson Ethan came running down the stairs. "Grandpa!" That was the first real smile I had all day.
"There he is," I said, opening my arms. He crashed into me, all energy and excitement, like nothing had changed, like I was still the person he couldn't wait to see. "You came," he said. "Of course I came," I replied. "Wouldn't miss it." He pulled back, eyes lighting up. "Did you bring it?" I smiled. "You think I'd forget?" I reached into my bag and pulled out the little wooden reindeer. His face lit up like I'd handed him something priceless. "Can we hang it now?" he asked. I glanced at Lauren. She hesitated, just for a second. "Ethan," she said, "we already decorated the tree." His smile faltered a little. "But we always—" "It's already done," she said, a little sharper this time. "Maybe later." I saw the way his shoulders dropped, just slightly. "Hey," I said, kneeling down beside him, "we'll find the perfect spot later, okay?" He nodded, but it wasn't the same. That moment stuck with me more than I expected. The rest of the afternoon went on like that. Small things, looks, tones, conversations that felt like they had an edge I couldn't quite name. By the time dinner rolled around, I felt like I was sitting in someone else's house, not my son's. We sat down at the table, everything perfectly arranged. The food looked incredible, I'll give her that. Lauren knows how to present a meal. But there was something cold underneath it all. Mark finally put his phone away. For a minute, I thought. We started eating, making small talk. Work, school, the usual. I tried to keep things normal. Asked Ethan about his classes, his friends. He answered, but he kept glancing at his parents, like he was checking if he was saying the right things. That wasn't how he used to be. At one point, I mentioned something about my house. Still haven't taken down your Christmas lights from last year? Mark said with a small smirk. I like them, I said. Keeps the place from feeling too empty. Lauren let out a quiet laugh. Or maybe it's time to move on. I felt that one. I'm doing fine, I said. Mark leaned back in his chair. You know, we've talked about this. That house is too big for you now. You should think about selling it. We've talked about it, I said, and I told you I'm not ready. Lauren exchanged a glance with him. That glance, that silent conversation. Something tightened in my chest. Dad, Mark said, his tone shifting, you can't just hold on to things forever. I'm not holding on to things, I replied. I'm living in my home. It's not practical, he said. Since when did everything have to be practical? I shot back. The table went quiet. Ethan looked down at his plate. Lauren set her fork down, slow and deliberate. It's not just about practicality, she said. It's about responsibility. I frowned. Responsibility to who? To yourself, she said, and to your family. Something about the way she said family didn't include me. I am taking care of myself, I said. Mark shook his head slightly. Barely. That hit harder than I expected. What's that supposed to mean? I asked. It means, he said, leaning forward now, you're isolated, you're stuck in the past, and you're making things harder than they need to be. I stared at him. This wasn't a conversation anymore. This was something else. I didn't realize I was such a burden, I said. It's not about being a burden, Lauren cut in. It's about facing reality. And what reality is that? I asked. That things change, she said.
People move on. I felt my hands tighten under the table. I lost my wife, I said. That's not something you just move on from because it's inconvenient. No one said it was inconvenient, Mark said, but his tone said otherwise. You're acting like it, I replied. The room felt smaller, tighter. Then Mark said something that shifted everything. Maybe it's time you stopped coming here every year. It was quiet for a second. So quiet I thought I might have imagined it. What? I said. He didn't back off. You heard me, he said. This isn't working anymore. I looked at him, really looked at him, trying to find the kid I raised somewhere in there. What are you talking about? I asked. Lauren stepped in, her voice calm but firm. It's just better this way, she said. For everyone. For everyone, I repeated. Ethan's fork clattered softly against his plate. Dad, he said under his breath, but no one acknowledged it. I felt something break in my chest, slow and quiet. You're asking me not to come to Christmas, I said. Mark exhaled like this was a difficult but necessary decision. I'm telling you it's time to create some distance. Distance. That word echoed in my head. I pushed my chair back slightly. So that's it, I said. After everything, this is how you handle it? It's not about the past, Lauren said. It's about what's best going forward. I let out a hollow laugh. Funny, I said. I thought family mattered in that equation. It does, Mark said. That's why we're doing this. Something inside me went cold. Doing what exactly? I asked. He looked at me, and for the first time that night, there was no hesitation. Setting boundaries, he said. I nodded slowly. Right, I said. Boundaries. I stood up. Well, I added, my voice steady in a way I didn't feel. I guess I got the message. Lauren didn't say anything. Mark didn't stop me. And as I reached for my coat, I heard something behind me that I'll never forget. Lauren laughed. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, satisfied little laugh, like something had finally gone the way she wanted. That's when I realized. This wasn't sudden. This was planned. I didn't slam the door when I left. Part of me wanted to. There's a certain kind of satisfaction in making noise when you've just been pushed out of your own son's life, like you're leaving something behind they'll have to deal with. But I didn't. I closed it carefully, almost gently, like I always had. Old habits don't break just because your heart does. The cold hit me the second I stepped outside. It had started snowing, light, steady flakes drifting under the porch light like something out of a postcard. The kind of scene that's supposed to feel warm, comforting. It didn't. I stood there for a second, just breathing it in, trying to steady myself. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or everything that had just happened inside. Probably both. I walked down the driveway slower than I should have, like if I dragged it out long enough, something might change. Like maybe the door would open behind me, and Mark would call my name the way he used to when he was a kid, when he needed help with something or just wanted me around. It didn't. I got into my car and sat there for a minute, staring at the house. The lights inside glowed warm and bright, shadows moving behind the curtains. Life continuing like nothing had just happened.
Like I hadn't just been erased from it. I started the engine, the sound cutting through the quiet, and pulled out of the driveway. I didn't have anywhere to go. That's the part nobody really prepares you for. It's not just the rejection. It's the emptiness that comes right after. The sudden realization that you were holding on to something you thought was solid, and now there's just nothing. I drove for a while without thinking, through neighborhoods lit up with Christmas decorations, houses full of people laughing, music playing, families gathered around tables like everything was exactly how it should be. I caught glimpses through windows as I passed, kids opening presents, couples leaning into each other, someone carving a turkey. Normal life, the kind I thought I still had, just in a different form. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until I ended up in a parking lot near a strip mall a few miles away. Half the stores were closed, but a diner on the corner still had its lights on. A flickering neon sign buzzed above the door. I parked and sat there for a minute, debating whether to go in. I wasn't hungry, but I also didn't want to go home. That house, it was going to feel too quiet tonight, louder than usual somehow. So I got out and walked in. The bell above the door chimed softly as I stepped inside. The place smelled like coffee and grease, familiar in a way that didn't demand anything from you. A couple of people sat scattered in booths, heads down, doing their own thing. No one looked up when I came in. Perfect. I slid into a booth near the window. A waitress came over after a minute, notepad in hand. "Coffee?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She nodded and walked off without another word. I stared out the window while I waited, watching the snow pick up, covering the parking lot in a thin layer of white. It was quiet out there. Peaceful, if you didn't think too hard about it. The coffee came, and I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting the heat seep in. That's when it hit me. Not all at once, not like some dramatic breakdown, just slowly, quietly, the weight of what had just happened. My son had asked me not to come back on Christmas, and his wife, she'd enjoyed it. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I started replaying everything in my head, every conversation from the past year, every moment I brushed off. The way Lauren would steer things, subtly at first, then more openly. The way Mark would agree with her, even when it didn't make sense. I thought about the house. Too big for you. Not practical. You should sell it. At the time, it felt like concern, advice. Now it felt like something else entirely. Pressure. And then the way they talked tonight. About responsibility. About moving on. About distance. It wasn't just about Christmas. This had been building, and I'd ignored it because I didn't want to see it. The waitress came back at some point, asked if I wanted anything else. I ordered something without really thinking about it. Didn't matter. I barely touched it when it came. I was still sitting there, staring at nothing, when my phone buzzed. For a second, my heart jumped. I thought it might be Mark. It wasn't. It was Ethan. I stared at his name on the screen for a second before answering. "Hey, buddy," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Grandpa," he said, and I could hear it immediately. He'd been crying. Something twisted in my chest. Hey, I said softly. "What's wrong?"
"They're fighting," he said. I closed my eyes. "About what?" "About you," he said. "Mom's mad that I said something." "What did you say?" I asked. There was a pause, like he wasn't sure if he should tell me. "I told them they were being messed up," he said finally, "that you didn't do anything wrong." I felt my throat tighten. "Ethan, I told Dad that you always show up," he continued, his voice shaking, "even when he doesn't. I said he was acting like a jerk. I almost smiled, even though it hurt. That sounds like something I would have said at your age, I muttered. I didn't mean to make things worse, he said quickly. I couldn't sit there. You didn't make things worse, I said. You told the truth. I miss you already, he said, and that almost broke me. I'm not gone, I said. I'm still here. Can I come see you? He asked. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to say yes, but because I knew what that would cause. Let's give it a little time, I said carefully. That's what Mom said, he muttered. Yeah, I said. I figured. There was another pause. Grandpa, he said, quieter now. They've been talking about your house. My grip tightened on the phone. What about it? They think you should sell it, he said. Mom said it's a waste, and Dad said it would make things easier. Easier for who? I asked, even though I already knew. He didn't answer. I heard them talking last week, he added. Mom said if you sell it, you could move closer, or somewhere smaller. And did your dad say anything else? I asked. Another pause. He said you'd probably fight it, Ethan said, but that you don't really have a choice forever. That cold feeling came back. Not a choice. I stared out the window, watching the snow fall harder now, covering everything in a clean, quiet layer that hid what was underneath. Grandpa? Ethan said. I'm here, I replied. I'm sorry, he said. Hey, I said firmly. You don't have anything to be sorry for. None of this is on you. Okay, he said softly. I'll call you tomorrow, I added. We'll figure something out, all right? Okay, he repeated. We hung up, and I sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand. It all started to click. The house, the pressure, the sudden shift tonight. This wasn't just about pushing me out of Christmas. They wanted something, and whatever it was, it had to do with that house. I paid the bill and walked back out into the snow, the cold biting harder now. When I got home, the place felt exactly how I expected. Too quiet. I stood in the living room, looking around at everything. Pictures on the walls, decorations my wife and I had put up years ago. The tree still half decorated, because I never got around to finishing it this year. This place wasn't just a house. It was everything I had left of a life that made sense. And now my own son was treating it like an obstacle? I walked over to the window and looked out at the street, the snow piling up under the streetlights. That's when I noticed something that didn't belong. A car, parked across the street, engine running, lights off. I frowned, watching it for a moment. Maybe it was nothing. Someone waiting, lost, taking a call. But then the driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. He stood there for a second, looking directly at my house, at me. Even through the glass, I could feel it. That kind of attention, it's not random. My stomach tightened.
He reached into his coat, pulled something out, and started walking toward my front door. Slow, deliberate, like he already knew exactly where he was going. And suddenly, everything Ethan said, everything that happened tonight, it didn't feel like family drama anymore. It felt like something else had just stepped into my life, something I wasn't ready for. I didn't move right away. That's the part that bothers me when I think back on it. The way I just stood there, frozen, watching this man walk across the street toward my house, like he had every right to be there, like this wasn't strange or wrong or completely out of place on a quiet Christmas night. The snow crunched under his boots, slow and steady. He didn't rush, didn't look around like he was worried about being seen. If anything, he moved like he expected to be noticed, like this was intentional. My first instinct should have been to turn off the lights, step back, call someone, but I didn't. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was anger, or maybe I was just too tired of feeling pushed around for one night. By the time he reached the front steps, I was already at the door. I opened it before he could knock. We stood there for a second, facing each other, the cold air slipping in between us. He was mid-40s, maybe early 50s, clean-shaven, heavy coat, the kind of face that doesn't give much away. Not rough, not polished, just controlled. You lost? I asked. He glanced past me into the house, then back at me. No, he said calmly, I don't think so. I didn't like that answer. Then you got about 5 seconds to explain why you're on my property, I said. He reached into his coat again, slow enough not to spook me, but deliberate enough to make a point. For a split second, I tensed, ready for something worse. Instead, he pulled out a folded piece of paper. Mind if I come in? He asked.
Yeah, I said flatly, I do mind. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth, like he expected that. Fair enough, he said. This won't take long. He handed me the paper. I didn't take it immediately. What is it? Information, he said. Something you're going to want to read. I hesitated, then took it. The paper was thick, official looking. Numbers, names, legal language. I didn't understand half of it at a glance, but one thing stood out immediately. Emily's name, more than once. My chest tightened. What is this? I asked, my voice sharper now. Part of the problem, he said. I looked up at him. You want to try that again, but in plain English? He exhaled slowly, like he was choosing how much to say. Your daughter is tied to a series of financial agreements, he said. Agreements that have gone sideways. I know that much, I said. Who are you? Someone trying to avoid a bigger mess, he replied. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. That calm tone again. The same kind Ryan had used. Different situation, same energy. I felt my jaw tighten. You one of the people he owes? I asked. A pause. Then he nodded. Something like that. I let out a slow breath. And you're here why? To collect? I said. If I was here to collect, this would be a very different conversation, he said. That didn't make me feel better. Then what do you want? I asked. He gestured lightly toward the paper in my hand. Clarity, he said. Because right now, you're about to make a mistake. I almost laughed. You don't even know what I'm about to do.
He looked at me, steady. You're going to fight your son-in-law, he said. Hire lawyers, push back on the transfers, try to reclaim assets. I didn't respond. You think you're protecting your daughter, he continued, and maybe you are, but if you do it the wrong way, you're going to make her situation worse. Explain that, I said. He took a step closer, not threatening, but enough to lower his voice. Right now, he said, most of the attention is on him, Ryan, his deals, his failures, his obligations. He's the focal point. And, I pressed, and if you start pulling at the structure he built, he said, you risk shifting that attention. To Emily, I finished. He didn't nod. He didn't have to. A cold feeling settled deep in my chest. She didn't know what she was signing, I said. I believe that, he said. Then why is she tied to it? I demanded. Because that's how he set it up, he replied. Clean separation of assets, messy attachment to liability. I looked down at the paper again, trying to make sense of the numbers, the names. How bad is it? I asked. He took a breath. Worse than she's been told, he said. That didn't surprise me. What do you want from me? I asked again. This time he answered directly. I want you to slow down, he said. Be careful how you move, because there are people involved in this who don't care about intent. They care about outcomes. And the outcome right now is what? I asked. That they want their money back, he said. I met his eyes. And they think my daughter has it? They think she's connected to where it went, he said. Which legally she is. I felt my hands tighten around the paper. She doesn't have anything, I said. He took everything. I know, he said. Then why are you here talking to me? I asked. Another pause. Then he said something that shifted everything again. Because not everyone on my side is interested in playing this through lawyers, he said. I stared at him. That's supposed to be a threat? I asked. It's a reality, he replied. The silence between us stretched for a second. Snow kept falling around us, quiet, steady, like the world didn't care what was happening on my front porch. What's your name? I asked. He hesitated, then said, Call me Grant. Grant, I repeated. All right, here's what you're going to do, Grant. You're going to explain exactly why you came to my house tonight instead of handling this through whatever channels you people usually use. He studied me for a moment, like he was deciding how much I could handle. Because your daughter isn't the only variable in this situation, he said. I frowned. What does that mean? It means Ryan made more than one move, he said, and not all of them are obvious yet. A slow, uneasy feeling started building in my chest. What kind of moves? I asked. He glanced at the house behind me again. The kind that involve leverage, he said. My mind immediately went to the worst place. My grandson? I said, my voice dropping. He shook his head. No, nothing like that. That didn't calm me as much as it should have. Then what? I asked. He looked back at me. Your house, he said. The words hit like a punch. I stared at him. What about my house? Check the paper, he said. I unfolded it fully this time, scanning through the dense lines until something caught my eye. An address. My address. My pulse spiked. What is this? I asked, my voice tight. A lien, he said. The word didn't fully register at first. A what? A lien, he repeated, attached to this property. That's not possible, I said immediately. This house is mine, paid off years ago. Was, he said. I looked at him, then back at the paper, my brain trying to catch up. How the hell? Ryan, he said simply. The world seemed to tilt slightly. He doesn't have any claim to this house, I said. None. Not directly, Grant said, but through a series of transfers and guarantees, your property was used as collateral. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. That's not possible, I said again, but it sounded weaker this time. Did you ever sign anything for him? Grant asked. I opened my mouth to say no. Then I stopped. Because there was something. A few months back, Mark had asked me to co-sign something small. A temporary guarantee, he called it. Said it would help with a short-term financial arrangement. Nothing major. He'd been vague, but he was my son. I trusted him. I signed. You did, Grant said quietly, reading my expression. I felt my stomach drop. That wasn't for this, I said. It was part of it, he replied. I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly needing the support. So what does that mean? I asked. Spell it out. It means, he said, his voice steady, if this situation escalates the wrong way, your house is exposed. Everything went silent in my head. The house. My house. The last place that still felt like mine. The place Mark wanted me to sell. The place Lauren called impractical. The place they kept pushing me about. It wasn't just about downsizing. It wasn't just about moving on. They knew, or at least they suspected. And suddenly that dinner conversation felt a whole lot different. Not concerned. Not practical. Calculated. I looked back at Grant, my voice barely steady. You're telling me my own son used me to secure his mess? I said. Grant didn't respond right away. Then he said, I'm telling you that if you don't handle this carefully, you could lose everything. I closed my eyes for a second, the weight of it all crashing down at once. My daughter, buried under debt she didn't understand. My son, pushing me out while setting me up. My house, no longer safe. And people I didn't even know, watching all of it, waiting for their turn. When I opened my eyes again, Grant was still standing there, calm as ever. What do? I asked. For the first time. He didn't have an immediate answer. That, he said slowly, depends on how far you're willing to go to protect what's left. And standing there in the cold, with everything I thought was solid starting to crumble, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. This wasn't just about fixing things anymore. It was about surviving them. I didn't sleep that night. After Grant left, I stood there in the doorway longer than I should have, watching his car disappear down the street, taillights fading into the snowfall like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just turned my entire life sideways in the span of 10 minutes. I locked the door, checked it twice, then walked back into the house slowly, like I was stepping into a place I didn't fully recognize anymore. Aline. That word kept echoing in my head. Not just on paper. Not just some distant legal problem I could deal with in an office across town. On my house. My house. The place I built a life in.
The place my wife and I paid off after years of scraping by, raising a kid, making sacrifices we never complained about. The place that still smelled like her cooking if you stood in the kitchen long enough and let your mind drift. And now it wasn't just mine. I sat down at the kitchen table and spread the paper out again, forcing myself to read it more carefully this time. Line by line, name by name, trying to piece together something that made sense. It didn't. Legal language twisted everything into something cold and distant. But the meaning underneath was clear enough. My name, attached to an obligation I didn't fully understand, tied to agreements I never meant to be part of. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling, my chest tight in a way that wasn't just anger anymore. It was something worse. Betrayal hits different when it comes from your own kid. It doesn't explode. It sinks in. Slow. Heavy. It sits in your bones and makes you question everything that came before it. I kept replaying that moment from a few months ago. Mark sitting at my kitchen table, casual as ever, explaining something I didn't fully follow, talking about short-term leverage, temporary backing, nothing permanent, just a favor, just something to help smooth things over on his end. I remember asking, "This won't affect me, right?" And he'd smiled. "Of course not, Dad. It's just paperwork." Just paperwork. I let out a hollow laugh into the empty room. I should have known better, but I didn't, because he wasn't just some guy asking me to sign something.
He was my son. And somewhere along the way, I stopped realizing that those two things weren't the same anymore. Around 3 a.m., I finally gave up on pretending I could rest and started making calls. First thing was Daniel, the lawyer. I left a message, marked urgent, told him we needed to talk as soon as possible. Then I called the bank, got bounced through automated systems and after-hours lines until I hit a wall of, "We'll have someone call you back." Of course. Nobody moves fast when you actually need them to. By the time the sun started coming up, I was still sitting at that same table, cold coffee in front of me, the paper still spread out like it might change if I stared at it long enough. It didn't. Emily called around 7:30. "Hey," she said, her voice tired but more steady than the day before. "Hey," I replied. "Did you sleep?" "No," I said. "Yeah, me neither." There was a pause. "Did anything happen?" she asked. I hesitated. Then I said it. "Someone came by the house last night." Silence on the other end. "What?" she said. I told her everything. The car, the man, the conversation, the paper. By the time I finished, she wasn't saying anything at all. "Emily?" I said. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know." "I know," I said. But even as I said it, there was a part of me, small, quiet, but there, that wondered how much she really hadn't seen. Not out of blame, out of reality. "Dad," she said, her voice tightening. "If your house is tied to this, I'll deal with it," I cut in. "You shouldn't have to," she said. "Doesn't matter," I replied. "We're already in it." Another pause. Then she said something that made my chest tighten again. "I think you should talk to Mark." I almost laughed. "Talk to him?" I said. "About what? How he used me without telling me?" "Maybe he didn't." "Don't," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Don't make excuses for him."
I'm not, she said quickly. I need to understand how far this goes, and he's the only one who knows everything. I rubbed my face. She wasn't wrong. That was the worst part. "I'll handle it," I said finally. "Please be careful," she added. "Yeah," I said. "You too." We hung up, and I sat there for another minute before I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed out. The drive to Mark's house felt longer than usual, not because of traffic. There wasn't much of that. It was early, the roads still quiet, the world just starting to wake up. It felt longer because I wasn't just going over there as his father. I was going over there as someone who had just realized he'd been played, and I didn't know which version of him I was going to find on the other side of that door. When I pulled into the driveway, the snow had already been shoveled. Of course it had. Everything about that house was always controlled, maintained, perfect. I parked, sat there for a second, then got out. This time, I didn't hesitate. I walked straight up to the door and knocked, hard. A few seconds later, it opened. Lauren stood there, wrapped in a robe, her expression immediately tightening when she saw me. "You shouldn't be here," she said. I didn't even acknowledge that. "Where's Mark?" I asked. "He's busy." "Then he can get unbusy," I said. "Now." She crossed her arms. "This isn't a good time." I took a step forward, just enough to make it clear I wasn't leaving. "It's the only time you're getting," I said. She held my gaze for a second, then turned her head slightly. "Mark," she called. "Your dad's here." Footsteps upstairs. A few moments later, he appeared at the top of the stairs, looking like he hadn't slept much either. He stopped when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I held up the paper. "That's what I want to know," I said. He frowned slightly, then started down the stairs. "What is that?" he asked. "Don't," I said. "Don't pretend you don't recognize it." He took the paper from my hand, glanced at it, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw something crack in his expression. Just for a second, but it was there. "You need to leave," Lauren said behind me. "Not happening," I replied. Mark looked up from the paper. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "Someone dropped it off," I said. "At my house. The one you apparently decided to use without telling me." "That's not," he started. "Don't lie to me," I cut in. "Not right now." Silence filled the room. He looked at Lauren. That same glance, that same silent conversation. I saw it clearly now, and something inside me snapped. "You think I don't see it?" I said. "You think I don't realize this whole thing, Christmas, the pressure, the house, it's all connected?" "That's not fair," Lauren said. "Fair," I laughed. "You want to talk about fair?" Mark ran a hand through his hair. "Dad, just calm down," he said. "Calm down?" I stepped closer. "You used my name, my house, without telling me what you were actually doing, and now you want me to calm down?" "I didn't use you," he said. "It was a standard guarantee." "For what?" I demanded. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "For what, Mark?" I repeated. He exhaled slowly. "For a position that needed backing," he said. "What position?" I asked. "An investment," he said. "How much?" I pushed. He didn't answer right away.
How much? I said again, louder. Finally, he looked at me.
More than I expected, he admitted. That wasn't an answer. How much? I said, my voice dropping. He swallowed. 800,000. The number hit like a punch to the chest. I stared at him. 800. I stopped, shaking my head. You put my house on the line for that? It wasn't supposed to. Don't, I snapped. Don't tell me what it was supposed to do. Tell me what it did. He didn't respond, because he didn't have a better version of the truth. Lauren stepped in again. We're handling it, she said. You don't need to involve yourself. I turned to her slowly. Too late, I said. I'm already involved. Mark looked between us, tension written all over his face. It's not as bad as it looks, he said. I almost laughed again. Someone came to my house last night, I said. Told me there are people who don't care about legal process, who don't care about intent. They just want their money. That got his attention. What? He said. Yeah, I replied. So if you've been downplaying this, now's the time to stop. He looked genuinely shaken for the first time. That shouldn't be happening, he said. Well, it is, I said. The room went quiet. And then, from behind him, I heard a voice. Maybe it's happening because you lied to everyone. Ethan. He was standing halfway down the stairs, looking at his father in a way I'd never seen before. Not scared, not confused, disappointed. And that hit harder than anything else in that moment, because for the first time, it wasn't just me seeing what Mark had become. It was his own son.